The lights in the
Thank you for
grand
waiting.
ballroom dimmed just
It's an honor
enough
to
for the
meet you.
spotlight to feel
The honor
like a
is all
blade.
mine.
200 faces frozen mid-laugh, mid-clap, mid-sip of champagne. The string quartet had stopped playing halfway through the chord. My gift, the small velvet box ID, wrapped myself at 3 in the morning because I wanted it perfect sat open on the table between us. Inside, the antique pocket watch my grandfather carried through 2 wars, the one thing ID kept when everything else was sold. ID told her it represented time we'd built together. She picked it up between 2 manicured fingers like it might stain her white silk gloves. Then she laughed, not a polite titter, a full, ringing laugh that echoed off the crystal chandeliers. "Oh, honey," she said, loud enough for the back tables to hear, "did you really think this little trinket was going to impress anyone here?" We spent more on the napkins. The room exhaled in uncomfortable silence. Then someone, her cousin, I think, snorted, and the laughter spread like fire through dry grass. I stood there in my rented tuxedo that pinched at the shoulders, smile still glued to my face because I de-practiced it in the mirror for weeks. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything vital and left the shell. But I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just reached over, gently closed the box, and said, very quietly, "You're right. It's not much." Then I turned to the crowd, raised my glass, and toasted her beauty, her family, our future. They clapped again, relieved the awkwardness had passed. She beamed, thinking she'd won the moment. She had no idea ID already started winning the war. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 38 now. Back then, I was 33, a mid-level financial analyst at a boutique investment firm downtown. The kind of job that paid enough to keep the lights on, but never enough to touch the world she came from. I'd grown up in a small town 2 hours north, parents who worked double shifts so I could be the first to go to college. Scholarships, night classes, ramen for dinner most nights. I met Victoria, everyone called her Toriat, a charity gala I was only invited to because my boss needed someone to carry his briefcase. She was radiant, sharp, ambitious. She laughed at my jokes, touched my arm when she spoke, and for the first time in my life I felt like I belonged somewhere expensive. We dated for 18 months. I proposed with a ring ID, saved 2 years from she said yes in front of her parents' marble fireplace. The wedding was her vision, 5-star venue, custom dress imported from Milan, open bar with top-shelf everything. I said yes to all of it because I loved her, and because I thought love meant stretching until you snapped. That night, after the laughter died and the guests drifted to the dance floor, I slipped outside to the garden terrace. The air was cool, smelling of roses and city exhaust. I leaned against the stone railing, stared at the skyline, and felt something shift inside me, not anger yet, but clarity. Cold, precise clarity. ID spent years trying to prove I was enough. That night she proved I never would be. So I decided to stop trying. I didn't storm off. I didn't confront her. I went back inside, danced with her aunt, laughed at her father's golf stories, kissed her cheek when she asked where I'd gone. I played the perfect groom until the last guest left. Then the real work began. It started small, very small. The next morning, while she slept off the champagne in our honeymoon suite, I sat at the hotel desk with my laptop. I opened the joint account we'd set up for wedding expenses, the one her parents had generously seeded with, $50,000 to help us get started. Most of it was already gone. Florist, photographer, the dress alterations she'd insisted on 3 times. But there was still enough left for what I needed. I transferred the remainder every last cent into a separate savings account in my name only. Not stealing, exactly. We'd agreed the leftover would go toward our first home. I just made sure the home would be mine alone. Then I started listening. Really listening. Tori talked constantly about money. Not in a greedy way, at least not then, but in the casual way people do when they've never been without it. She'd say things like, well, need the lake house for summers, or I can't possibly drive anything less than a Mercedes. I'd nod, smile, file it away. She had no idea how much those words cost me in pride. Over the next few months, she pushed for more. A bigger apartment in a better zip code. Designer furniture. Vacations she saw on Instagram. I kept saying yes, but I was already building the trap. See, I'd always been good with numbers. Too good. While she shopped, I researched, quietly. I learned about leveraged investments, margin accounts, high-risk ventures that promised quick returns but carried ruin if they failed. I opened accounts in both our names because she trusted me with the finances. You're the numbers guy, babe. I made sure every risky move looked legitimate on paper. I encouraged her spending. Not obviously. Subtly. You deserve the best dress, I'd say, when she hesitated over a $10,000 gown. Let's do the destination wedding photos in Santorini, even though we were already over budget. She loved that I was finally on board with her lifestyle. She posted about it constantly, hashtag, living our best life, hashtag, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. Meanwhile, I funneled our joint income into those high-risk positions. Small at first, then larger. I used her credit cards ID, co-signed for business expenses that were really margin calls. When the market dipped, I didn't sell. I doubled down. I told her the dips were normal, temporary. She believed me because she wanted to believe the life we were building was real. 2 years in, the first crack appeared. One of her favorite boutiques called about an overdue bill. She laughed it off, handed me the phone. I paid it from our joint account, but I made sure she saw the balance drop. She frowned for maybe 10 seconds, then shrugged. Well, make more next quarter. We didn't. 3 years in, the market turned ugly. My positions tanked. I didn't panic. I let them tank. Margin calls started coming. I answered them by borrowing more home equity line we'd opened just in case. Credit cards maxed, personal loans in both names. I kept the statements rooted to my email. She never checked. She started asking questions around year 4. Why is the credit card bill so high? I'd show her the statement's carefully edited screenshots. San blame inflation, unexpected repairs, her medical spa treatments. She bought it because confronting it would mean admitting the fairy tale was crumbling. By year 5, we were drowning. The apartment lease was up. We couldn't afford to renew. Her parents had stopped the monthly allowance they'd given her since college. She cried one night, said she felt like a failure. I held her, told her we'd figure it out together. I meant it in a way she didn't understand. Then came the final move. I'd been building a separate life in parallel. A small condo in my name only, paid in cash from an inheritance ID. Never told her about my grandfather's watch. Wasn't the only thing had left me. A new job at a rival firm. Higher salary, no joint accounts. Friends who were mine, not ours. The day the bankruptcy notice arrived, to dress to both of us, I sat her down at our dining table. The same table she'd chosen because it was timeless. I laid out the papers, every debt, every maxed card, every failed investment. Her eyes went wide, then glassy. But you handled everything, she whispered. I did, I said softly, and you trusted me. She stared at the numbers like they were in another language. Then she looked at me, really looked, and saw the man Shed laughed at 5 years earlier. The one Shed called poor in front of everyone we knew. I didn't yell, I didn't gloat. I just said, I kept the watch. You can have the dress. She wore that same dress the day the marshals came to repossess the furniture. White silk against the bare walls. Mascara tracks down her cheeks, alone in an empty apartment that used to be ours. I walked away with nothing flashy, just freedom, and the quiet satisfaction that Shed finally understood what poor really felt like. But revenge, it doesn't taste sweet. It tastes like ash, because I lost pieces of myself building that cage around her. Pieces ill never get back. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear her laugh from that ballroom. It never quite stops echoing. I didn't wake up the morning after the wedding and decide to destroy her life. That would be too clean, too cinematic. No, what happened was slower, colder, more like frost creeping across a window pane until you can't see through it anymore. I went back to work on Monday like nothing had changed. Same cubicle, same flickering fluorescent light, same coffee that tasted like regret even before you drank it. My boss asked how the honeymoon was.
Thank you for
I
waiting.
told him we'd
It's an honor
postponed
to
it.
meet
Some last-minute work
honor is all
thing came
mine.
up. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Smart man,
You named the
keep
book after
grinding."
me.
I smiled.
Of course it's our story.
Inside, I was already
Can't believe
calculating
you.
compound interest on something much darker than a 401k. The first real step wasn't dramatic. It was boring. Numbers
this
on a
would
screen.
You knew I
I
would find
opened
you.
a brokerage
Did you
account
really think
in
I
my
wouldn't be
name
prepared
only,
for that, Julia?
linked it
How
to the
could you
small
do
checking
this?
account. I'd kept secret since college, the one I used to squirrel away birthday cash from my mum before she passed. There wasn't much in it. Maybe 7,000 after I sold the last of my childhood baseball cards. But it was mine, untouched by her world. I started reading, not self-help books or revenge manuals, financial filings, SEC reports, message boards where day traders argued in broken English about margin and leverage and how close you could dance to the edge before the floor gave way. I learned the language of ruin the way some people learn poetry lightly, obsessively. Late at night while she slept beside me, smelling of expensive lotion and other people's compliments. Every time she came home with another shopping bag. Every time she sighed about how our apartment was cute but temporary. I added another layer to the plan. I never wrote it down. Nothing on paper, nothing in notes apps, nothing searchable. It lived in my head like a second heartbeat. I encouraged her to keep her own credit cards active. You should have the freedom to treat yourself, babe, I'd say while she scrolled through designer sites on the couch. She loved that I'd finally gotten on board. She'd kiss me, post a photo of whatever arrived in the mail, tag the brand, tag me, hashtag blessed, hashtag Mrs. Hayes, hashtag living large. Every like felt like another brick in the wall I was building around her. Around month 8, I started the real movement. I suggested we open a joint investment account for our future, I said. She rolled her eyes playfully. You and your spreadsheets. But she signed. I made sure the risk tolerance form listed us both as aggressive. She didn't read the fine print. Why would she? She trusted me with the boring parts. I didn't dump everything into one stock. That's how you get caught. I spread it. Small cap biotech with one promising drug in phase 3. A lithium mining play tied to electric cars. A couple of SPACs that sounded futuristic. I told her the portfolio was diversified, balanced, boring. She never asked for the login. When the first gains came in 30% in 3 months, she squealed and booked us a weekend at a bed and breakfast she'd seen in a magazine. I let her. I even paid for it from the joint account. But I was already moving the profits out slow drips into the separate brokerage, disguised as withdrawal for home down payment research. She started talking about kids around then. Maybe next year, she said one night, curled against me, a little haze running around. I kissed her forehead and said, soon. I didn't tell her the math didn't work anymore. The lifestyle she demanded was eating faster than we earned. The only thing growing was the debt I was quietly feeding. Year 2, the cracks started showing in ways only I could see. One of her cards got declined at lunch with her friends. She laughed it off on the phone with me later. They must have had a glitch. I transferred money from the joint savings to cover it, but I made sure the transfer showed up on the statement. She glanced at it once, frowned, then closed the app. We'll talk about it later, she said. We never did. I kept feeding the machine. More margin, more leverage. I'd sit in the guest room at 2 a.m, blue light on my face, watching positions swing. When they dropped, I bought more. When they rose, I let them ride. I was building a tower of cards so tall she couldn't see the base anymore. She never suspected because I never changed. I still brought her coffee in bed on Saturdays. I still listened when she vented about her mother's passive-aggressive comments. I still told her she was beautiful, even when her eyes were puffy from crying about some influencer drama. I became the perfect husband in every visible way. That was the cruelest part, I think. She felt safe, loved, secure. And all the while I was counting down. By year 3 the portfolio was red deep. Red, but the statements still came to my inbox first. I doctored the PDFs before forwarding them, trimmed the losses, inflated the gains, just enough to keep her comfortable. She stopped asking to see them. You're so good at this stuff, she'd say, waving her hand like it was beneath her. I started preparing the exit ramp for myself around then. New email address. Separate phone plan on a cheap burner I kept in my work bag. A small storage unit across town where I began moving things I cared about: my grandfather's letters, my mum's recipe cards, the watch she'd laughed at. Nothing big. Nothing she'd notice missing. I opened the cash buyer's condo in cash. A 1-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood she'd never set foot in. I told the realtor I was purchasing for an aging aunt. He didn't ask questions. I closed in 30 days. She never saw the keys. Year 4, she started to feel the squeeze. Restaurants she loved stopped comping her wine. Her favorite boutique owner gave her that tight smile, the one that says your card didn't go through again. She came home angry one night, threw her purse on the counter. I think the economy's affecting luxury brands, she said. I nodded solemnly. Probably. I held her while she cried about how unfair it was. I stroked her hair and whispered that we'd get through it. And in my head I counted the months left until the margin calls became impossible to hide. I didn't hate her then. Not exactly. What I felt was colder. More like watching a beautiful house burn from across the street. Knowing you lit the match, but also knowing the owners had laughed while they poured gasoline on someone else's life. The night the final piece clicked into place, I sat on the balcony alone. She was asleep inside. The city glittered below us, like it always had, like it had when she first brought me up here and said, "This is our view now." I looked at my phone. One notification from the brokerage. Final margin call. 6 figures. Due in 72 hours. I exhaled, long and slow. Then I started drafting the letter I'd never send, the one that explained everything. I didn't need to send it. She'd understand soon enough. The bookstore smelled like new paper and fresh coffee, the kind of clean, hopeful scent that usually calms me. That evening, it felt suffocating. Every breath pulled in too much anticipation, too much of what I'd built in secret, now pressing against my ribs like a second heartbeat. I arrived just after 5. The event staff had already set everything up. Long table draped in black cloth, stacks of the hardcover rising behind me like dark tombstones. A banner stretched above that read Sophia Lang, #1 New York Times bestselling author, in crisp white letters. Someone had even placed a single rose in a slim vase next to the signing pen. I almost laughed when I saw it. Sophia hated roses. Too cliché, she used to say. I wore a plain charcoal blazer over a white shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled just past the wrists. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed, "This is the real author." I wanted to disappear into the role of helpful assistant if anyone asked. Most people wouldn't. They'd assume the writer was running late, or shy, or eccentric. Debut authors get away with a lot. The first readers trickled in around 5:30. A college girl with pink hair and 3 copies clutched to her chest. An older man in a tweed jacket who told me he'd cried twice already. A couple who'd driven 2 hours because the wife said the book felt like someone finally said the quiet part out loud. I signed each one the way I'd practiced, a quick flourish for the S, a deliberate slant on the L. The way Sophia used to sign birthday cards back when we were still soft with each other. Every signature felt like threading a needle through my own skin. By 6, the line snaked halfway down the aisle. Phones were out. Whispers traveled faster than footsteps. Is she really not coming out? Maybe she's in the back. I heard she's super reclusive. I kept my head down, pen moving, murmuring thank yous, and I'm so glad it resonated. My voice stayed steady. My pulse did not. Then the door opened wider. She walked in, alone. No warning, no dramatic music cue like in the movies. Just the soft chime of the entrance bell and the sudden hush that follows when someone important or infamous steps into a room. Sophia wore a cream trench coat belted tight, dark jeans, ankle boots that clicked with every step. Her hair was shorter now, a sleek bob that framed her face sharper than I remembered. Makeup perfect, eyes scanning like she owned the place. She always did. She stopped maybe 15 feet from the table, saw the banner first, then the stacks, then me. Her lips parted. Nothing came out. I lifted my gaze slowly, held hers. The entire bookstore seemed to shrink to the space between us. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she started walking again. Faster this time. The line parted without anyone realizing why. When she reached the table, she didn't speak right away. She just stared at the open book in front of me. I'd been signing for a teenage boy who was now frozen, eyes wide. Her name, my handwriting, her words inside.
How could you do this?
She picked up the copy from the top of the nearest stack, flipped to the table of contents. Her thumb brushed the first title. "You're so pathetic, Ethan. No one wants to read this shit." She read it aloud, quiet, almost reverent, like she was hearing her own voice from underwater. The boy in front of me shifted uncomfortably. "Ah, are you?" Sophia ignored him, looked at me instead. "How long?" she asked. I set the pen down carefully, like it might explode if I moved too fast. "Long enough," I said. She laughed once short, strangled. "This is my name. My face, my everything. You put my name on your failure, and it became..." She gestured at the line, at the people watching, filming. It was never my failure," I said. The words came out quieter than I meant. "You told me it was. Repeatedly. I just believed you for a while." Her eyes flicked to the crowd. Phones up. Red recording lights, like tiny, accusing eyes. "You can't do this," she whispered. "This is identity theft. Fraud. I'll sue." You could," I cut in gently. "You could drag it through courts. Explain to a judge why those exact messages your messages are chapter titles in a book everyone thinks you wrote. You could tell them how you sent them at 2 in the morning, or just after lunch on a Tuesday, or the night you said you were out with friends, but really you were already packing. You could make it all public, every word." Her jaw tightened. Color rose in her cheeks, not embarrassment, rage, or, I continued, "you let it stand. You let the world keep believing Sophia Lang is brave enough to put her worst moments on the page. You let them keep buying it, loving it, quoting it. Because the alternative is telling them the truth, that you never wrote a single sentence. That the pain they're crying over, it belongs to someone you threw away." Silence stretched, thick, electric. Someone in the back coughed. A nervous laugh escaped another person. Sophia's hand shook as she set the book down. Hard, the thud echoed. "You think this makes you powerful," she hissed. "You think this fixes anything. You're still the same pathetic." "Stop," I said, not loud. "Just firm. Don't finish that sentence. Not here." Her eyes searched mine, looking for the man she used to know. The one who apologized. The one who stayed quiet. The one who let her define him. He wasn't there anymore. "I kept every message," I told her. "Not because I loved you. Because I needed proof that what I felt was real. That the hurt had shape. Words, dates. You gave me the titles. I gave them a body, a spine, a number 1 spot." She took a step back. Then another. "You're sick," she said. "Maybe," I answered. "But I'm not hiding anymore." The teenage boy finally found his voice. "Wait, so you're not Sophia?" I looked at him, then at her, then back at the line that had gone completely still. "No," I said clearly, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "I'm Ethan Harlow. I wrote the book. She just inspired it." A ripple moved through the crowd. Gasps, murmurs. Someone said "holy shit" under their breath. Sophia turned, fast, coat flaring. She walked toward the door without looking back. I watched her go. The bell chimed again when she left. For a long second, no one spoke. Then the girl with pink hair started clapping. Slow at first, then others joined. Not cheering, not celebrating, just acknowledging. Like they'd witnessed something private and brutal and true. I picked up the pen again, looked at the next person in line. "Hi," I said. "Who should I make this out to?" The line moved forward. But something in me stayed exactly where it was standing in the wreckage of what I'd done, listening to the echo of the door closing behind her. That night, the video started circulating. By morning, the internet had my name, and hers, and every message she'd ever sent me. The reckoning wasn't quiet anymore. It was loud, and it was only beginning. The videos hit like wildfire. By the time I left the bookstore that night, around 9:30, after the last person in line had their book signed and the staff started stacking chairs, the first clips were already everywhere. TikTok first, then Twitter, Instagram Reels, even a few shaky YouTube shorts uploaded straight from the event floor. The sound was tinny but clear enough, my voice saying, "I'm Ethan Harlow. I wrote the book, she just inspired it." Her face in frame for half a second before she turned OA eyes wide, mouth open in that perfect O of disbelief. The crowd's stunned silence afterward, the slow clap that started from one girl and spread like guilt. I didn't check my phone on the subway ride home. didn't need to. I could feel it vibrating in my pocket every few seconds like a heartbeat that wasn't mine anymore. When I finally opened the apartment door a little past 10, the notifications were in the thousands. My old personal Instagram, dormant for years, had been tagged so many times the app crashed when I tried to load it. Strangers diming questions. Reporters asking for comment. Friends from college I hadn't spoken to in a decade, texting variations of "dude, what the hell?" I poured a glass of water, sat on the couch in the dark, let the screen glow against my face. The top trending hashtag was hashtag Sophia Langfraud. Right below it, hashtag Ethan Harlow Truth. Someone had already made a side-by-side, her old professional headshot, next to a grainy photo of me from the signing table. The caption read, "She didn't write it. He did, and he made her famous for it anyway." I scrolled. Articles were dropping fast. The literary blog's first quick takes, calling it the most audacious act of literary revenge since the internet began. Then the bigger outlets, Vanity Fair, The Cut, even a mention in the New York Times book section by morning. A debut that wasn't the best-selling novel no one knew was ghostwritten by its own villain. They quoted lines from the book, my book, her chapter titles. People were digging up her old social media now posts she deleted years ago, screenshots circulating like evidence in a trial. Old co-workers tagged in comments, "Wait, Sophia never mentioned writing a novel. She always said she hated fiction." I didn't sleep. Around 4 in the morning, I opened my email. Mara Voss had sent 7 messages in the last 3 hours. The first, "Ethan, we need to talk." Immediately. The second, "The publisher is in crisis mode. Legal is involved." The third, "This is fraud, or defamation, or both. Call me." The rest were shorter, more panicked. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the royalty dashboard. The numbers had jumped again. Another print run ordered. Foreign rights offers coming in from 6 countries. The book was no longer just selling, it was exploding because of the scandal. People wanted to read the thing that caused this much chaos. I closed the laptop, stared at the ceiling until the sky outside turned the color of bruises. Sophia called just after 7. I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity, maybe, or the need to hear her voice cracked, made me pick up. She didn't say hello. "You ruined me." Her voice was flat. No tears, just exhaustion. "You ruined yourself," I said quietly. I just held up the mirror. A long silence. I could hear traffic in the background. She was outside somewhere. Walking, maybe. Running from the noise in her own head. Everyone thinks I'm a liar. My boss called this morning. Asked if I was moonlighting as an author. My boyfriend, he saw the videos. He asked if it was true, if I'd ever said those things to you. Did you tell him the truth? I told him to fuck off and left. Another pause. I'm getting death threats, Ethan. Actual messages telling me to kill myself for being a fraud, for hurting you. They don't even know me. They just read the book and decided I'm the villain. You wrote the villain, I said. I just gave her your name. She laughed. A broken sound. You think this makes us even? You think I deserve this? I thought about it. Really thought. I don't know what you deserve anymore, I told her. I just know what I needed. And I needed the world to see that your words had weight, that they could build something instead of just tear it down. She was crying now, soft, controlled. I never meant for it to hurt like that. I was angry. I was leaving. I said things because it was easier than admitting I was scared. Scared of staying with someone who dreamed bigger than I ever could. The admission hung there, small, human.
You named
I
the
didn't
book
say
after me.
anything. I'm
Of
sorry,
course it's our
she
story.
whispered,
I
for
can't
all of
believe
it.
you.
The words landed differently than I expected. Not like victory, like ash. I know, I said.
You
She
knew
hung
this
up.
would happen.
I sat
You
with the
knew I would
silence
find
for a
you.
long
Did you
time.
really think I wouldn't be
By
prepared for
noon,
that,
the
Julia?
publisher released a
How could you
statement.
do this?
They were investigating the authorship claims and pausing all promotional activity until clarity is achieved. They didn't mention me by name. Didn't have to. Everyone already knew. Mara called again. This time, I answered. You lied to me, she said. No greeting, just fact. I did. Why? Because if I'd told you the truth, you never would have sent it out. A beat, you're right, she admitted. I wouldn't have. Too much risk. Too much. Everything. I waited. But the book is brilliant, she continued. Even knowing now, I still think it's brilliant. The pain is real. The structure is genius. People aren't buying it because they think Sophia wrote it. They're buying it because it hurts in the exact right way. I swallowed. So what happens now? Legally, it's a mess. The contract is in her name. Royalties are tied to that name. If we reissue under yours, we lose momentum. If we don't, we risk lawsuits. From her, from readers who feel duped, from bookstores who stocked it as women's fiction. I closed my eyes, and morally, she sighed. Morally, you gave the world something true by wearing someone else's mask. That's not clean, but it's not nothing. We didn't speak for almost a minute. I'm going to recommend they pull the book, she said finally, quietly. Refund requests. Statements saying authorship is disputed. It'll tank the sales, but it might save you from jail. Jail. The word felt surreal. I'll take whatever comes, I told her. She laughed short, surprised. You really did this without an exit plan, didn't you? I had an entrance plan, I said. That was enough. She was quiet again. I'm sorry I believed her name instead of asking harder questions. I'm sorry I let you. We hung up. That afternoon, the first lawsuit threat arrived from Sophia's new lawyer. Cease and desist. Damages for emotional distress. Identity theft. Libel. The usual. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the manuscript file one last time. Read the dedication I'd never shown anyone. To the woman who said these words first. May they find their way back to you. I deleted it. Then I started writing something new. Not about her. Not about revenge. About the cost of carrying someone else's shadow for so long that you forget the shape of your own. The sales kept climbing for another week. Then the first returns hit. Then the second wave of articles. The rise and fall of a literary hoax. By the end of the month, the book was off every major list. Sophia disappeared from public view. Private accounts locked. No more photos. No statements. I heard through a mutual friend she'd left the city, moved somewhere quieter, started therapy, stopped dating the finance guy. I didn't reach out. Some things you don't fix with more words. The royalties stopped coming. The publishers settled quietly small 6 figures to make the whole thing go away. They reissued a corrected edition under my name 6 months later. Different cover, no mirror, just plain black with white text, The Mirror You Hate by Ethan Harlow. It sold decently, never hit #1 again, but a few thousand people bought it anyway. Read it knowing the truth from the start, and maybe that was enough. I still wake up some nights around 3, heart racing, convinced I hear her heels in the hallway, but it's only the radiator, or the neighbor, or nothing at all. The mirror's broken now, and I'm finally learning to live with the pieces. Time doesn't heal the way people say it does. It just stretches the wound thinner until light starts showing through the edges. Some days you forget it's there. Other days you press on it just to feel something real. 6 months after the signing, the apartment in Brooklyn felt different. Not emptier, exactly the opposite. The silence had weight now. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an apology I hadn't earned yet. I kept the same desk by the window, same laptop, different manuscript open. No chapter titles borrowed from anyone else's cruelty this time. Just my own voice trying to find its way back after being drowned out for so long. The reissued edition under my name arrived in a plain brown box one Tuesday around noon. No fanfare, no press release. Just 12 copies sitting on my kitchen counter like quiet strangers. The cover was simpler than before, no cracked mirror, no dramatic silhouette. Just the title in white against matte black, my full name beneath it in smaller type. The Mirror You Hate Ethan Harlow, I opened one, flipped past the new dedication page blank. I hadn't written anything there, couldn't find words small enough to fit what I'd done. Sales reports came monthly now instead of daily. Numbers had settled somewhere modest but steady. A few book clubs still discussed it. A literature professor at NYU reached out asking if I'd speak to her class. I said no. Not yet. Maybe never. Sophia's name faded from the headlines faster than I expected. The internet moves on when the next outrage arrives. By summer, people had mostly stopped asking where she was. A few gossip accounts claimed she'd moved to Portland. Others said Lisbon. One blurry photo surfaced woman with short hair walking a dog near water. Could have been her, could have been anyone. I didn't look for confirmation. One evening, just after 8, when the sky was turning that bruised purple it does in late October, my phone lit up with an unknown number, area code I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. No, hello. Just breathing on the other end for maybe 5 seconds. Then her voice, softer than before, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I read the new edition. I leaned against the counter, let the silence sit between us like an old friend neither of us trusted anymore. They took my name off everything, she continued, even the acknowledgements I never wrote. They did. Another pause. I thought it would feel like winning when they pulled it, when the lists erased me, but it just felt empty. I didn't reply right away. I was remembering the bookstore lights, the way her hand shook when she read her own words back to herself. I kept one copy, she said, the original, with my name on it. I hide it in a drawer because looking at it makes me want to burn something. But I can't bring myself to throw it away either. Why not? Because it's the only thing I ever made that people loved, even if I didn't make it. The honesty in her voice was new. No armor, no sharpness, just the raw underside of someone who'd finally run out of places to hide. I'm not calling to apologize again, she added quickly. I already did that, and you already heard it. I'm calling because I don't know what comes next. For either of us. I looked out the window. Streetlights flickering on one by one. People moving below like they knew exactly where they were going. Neither do I told her. She let out a small, surprised breath, almost a laugh. That's honest. It's all I've got left. We stayed quiet for a while, not awkward. Just present, to people who'd once shared a life, now sharing the wreckage of what happened after. I started writing, she said finally. Not a novel, just pages. For myself, no one else gets to see them. Not yet, maybe never. The admission felt like a door cracking open somewhere far away. Good, I said. And I meant it. Another long silence. I'm glad it wasn't all for nothing, she whispered. The book, the pain, whatever this was. I closed my eyes. Me too. She didn't say goodbye, just ended the call. I stood there holding the phone until the screen went dark. That night, I opened the new manuscript again, wrote 3 pages before the words ran dry. They weren't about her. They weren't about revenge or mirrors or borrowed names. They were about a man learning slowly, clumsily how to carry his own shadow instead of wearing someone else's. Some mornings I still wake up around 3, convinced I hear heels in the hallway. But now I don't tense. I just listen until the sound fades into radiator hum or neighbor doors or nothing. And then I get up, make coffee, sit at the desk, write. Not to prove anything anymore. Not to balance scales that were never even, just because the pages are there, waiting. And for the first time in years, so am I. Revenge doesn't end with applause or headlines or even apologies. It ends quietly, in the small hours, when the only voice left in the room is your own, and you finally recognize it.